Awesome. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us on the Inside Scoop today. Really excited to have you on and learn more about your own journey, your marketing guru-ness, and then also your founding journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Ashley, to really get started, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background in marketing. You've done it in so many ways, from Sauce Labs to the Olivine. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, Olivine.
From Sauce Labs to Olivine to starting your own company right now. How have you seen marketing change over the past decade?
Yeah, I think what's fun about being in marketing is that you do always have to stay up on the latest trends, but you have to pay attention to them because it is constantly changing. I think that the effort to acquire new users within SaaS, especially now with AI, is just the rate at which we have to stay up to date. It makes it so that you can't get static and you don't get bored. So I like that about marketing. Yeah, I mean, I started my career at Sauce Labs. I would say that at that time it was very much Sauce Labs was a developer focused, filled the developers, so kind of developer engineering tech. And at that time it was very much about, I think, the rise of conferences, premium. So it's just like the tactics then were very different than what we do today, even though we still have PLG and events. So I'd say some of the things that I've seen kind of change over time has been, if you think about like going to big scale events and doing booths, and now we're like much more around kind of intimate dinners. I think that's just speaking to how things have changed over the last decade on just what buyers are expecting. They want to just go more, social selling, I would say, like going through your network. Just the rise of SaaS has led to so many companies in the last decade being built, and there's so much competition. There's so many tools you could go buy. I think we're kind of at a place where, going into 2025, we have to kind of rely on our networks to tell us to cut through the noise because there's just so much to get through.
Well, I'm curious. So you mentioned that just the rise of SaaS in so many companies. Did you see a slight change with the 2022, 2023 when the market kind of fell off at the bottom? Or do you think it's really, that was more of an important blip, but a similar blip as now that we have the rise of AI coming?
Feel like it's a similar blip. I think we're just in, I think about kind of the post recession 2008, 2009 kind of run up of like, yeah, I guess kind of the shift to cloud and the shift to the cloud revolution, then the mobile revolution, then the 2021, 2022 blip of just, you know, crazy funding, crazy companies, all of that. And now we're in AI. I think that it's just leading to the same place of saying that it's never been easier to start a company in many ways. Though I think it's actually very hard to start a company when you think about how you're going to fund it and how do you enter such crowded markets these days. But I think on the flip side, it's actually very easy to say, hey, I'll build the next XYZ and I'll do it cheaper and different and better. You don't need to sell us on software. The digital revolution is already here. There's just so many companies out there. There's so many tools being built in the same space. You might have one space that has 30 different tools that you could pick from. I know in our space of sales tech, it's like that's what we run up against. And so I think that we're entering 2025 with that plus AI as kind of our core things that we need to be kind of thinking about as marketers and kind of how are we going to stand out.
Okay, so you mentioned there's so many companies, there's so much competition. Knowing all of this and knowing what you're up against, you decided to start a company. Tell me more.
I think like anyone who starts a company, you do it despite those realities because I think you just feel the pull to do something yourself. And I'm curious if you feel that way, starting a company. It's almost like something you can't really fight or ignore. So you have to just say, like, all right, buckle up. This will not be easy, but I'm going to go for it anyways. And I think that that's certainly something that I felt when we decided to start Momentum is just the allure of kind of doing your own thing, charting your own path and saying, hey, despite these other tools being in the market or there's other things being there, we're really interested in X, Y, and Z, and let's just go after it and do it this way and see what happens. And I think that that's kind of the fun of the entrepreneurship journey is like going against the grain and really just taking the risk and saying, it'll either work or not, but I want to go on the journey to see if I can pull it off.
Very much agreed. A lot of people ask me, what outcome are you looking for? And I have to say, no, I've got to enjoy the journey. You know, it
That's what
can,
it's about. Yeah. Because you're along the road, you're on the journey whether you like it or not, or whether you recognize it or not. And I don't know about you, but I think that the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, there's such highs and such lows if you kind of let yourself be swayed. So that's part of where you have to come back to just like, why am I doing this? Okay, I'm doing it because I'm learning a lot, or I'm enjoying the people I work with, and try to keep a steadier hand. Because I think otherwise you get really pulled in either direction of feeling like, oh, we closed this deal, we're doing awesome. Or we didn't close this deal, we suck. It's just it can be very polarizing and binary.
Or you hear SVB crash, or you see Bitcoin go to $100,000 as it just hit a couple days ago.
Yes.
You see it both ways. And I very much feel
Yep.
you on you've got to enjoy the process because you can't fully control the outcome. Maybe you have, COVID 2030, which, to be clear for all listeners, I am aiming not to happen,
Yes, please.
nor any other spin variation. I'm done with once in a lifetime events for at least this decade.
Yes, I'm with you on that.
So what's for Momentum? You actually did start it during the pandemic. Can you say a little bit more about your journey there, what that initial idea was, and what led you to really say, all right, this idea is actually a company?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, COVID was partly a catalyst for the momentum that we know of today. The momentum was started originally by my husband and co-founder, Santi, and Moise, our other co-founder. I was functioning kind of as a pseudo third co-founder with Rachel, who I was running all of my marketing with. They decided to start the company early 2020. So it was officially April 2020 was okay, let's do this. And I think COVID, what it meant for us was Ray and I found ourselves with a marketing agency that had basically the revenue drop overnight. Because I think March 2020, if you'll recall, marketing teams and marketing budgets were probably the first thing to be slashed when everything dropped off. So we had a lot of time on our hands to say, well, what should we do? And we were in lockdown, of course. So we're literally at home with nothing to do. And the idea for Momentum was really around this idea of workflow automation. We were seeing the rise of real work being done in Slack, coinciding with the move to remote work, the acceleration of remote work and everyone being online doing their work together and not being in an office. We kind of got excited thinking about, wow, what are the things that people are going to be doing via Slack and via workflow automation now that they're not sitting next to each other? And when we thought about that kind of problem space applied to sales, we said, well, this is a function within the organization that everyone touches: marketing, sales, customer success, engineering. So that felt like kind of a meaty problem to go after. And I think that we spent the next couple of months validating the idea. And when in the fall of 2020, we went out for a pre-seed round, that's when I decided to jump over and do Momentum more full time and really become a third co-founder officially.
That's awesome. And your journey since then has been really interesting. And you're doing it all. You're unlike most founders who just gravitate towards the Bay or a major city, you're in Argentina.
Yeah, we started the company in San Francisco where we were living at the time. Santi and I both met there a long time ago, so been in the Bay Area for a while. And Santi's Argentinian, and we didn't travel during COVID because we had a young kid, and we just hunkered down in San Francisco. But when the world started to open up again, we decided to come to Argentina for what was going to be a year kind of sabbatical. We've been building out our SDR team here. And we wanted our kids to learn Spanish. So we said, like, oh, let's go do a year. Post-COVID, our investors didn't really care where we were working from anymore. But that's turned into 2 years now. And we, don't have plans actually to move back. We put our kids in school. We bought an apartment. So we've kind of had a life change, but it's been really a blessing to be able to build a company in this new world where we do have folks here, folks in the US. We have engineering in Vancouver, and we have an engineering team in India. It's been really fun to kind of build in this sort of hybrid. We go to an office every day, which has been great. Compared to San Francisco, where we're working from home with nobody there. We've kind of got this hybrid work thing going, multicultural, multi-language company experience that I didn't predict would happen, but I'm really happy, 4 years later, that this is where we are.
That's fantastic. And I'm curious, so you've done marketing at a company, run a marketing agency. Now you are running a marketing company. how are you doing your own marketing? I can't think of anybody better to ask this question to, and like, what's working?
It's a great question. I would say we're not a marketing company. I would say that we're sales tech. So I think there's a distinction there because we don't sell to marketers. Some marketers like using our product, but we really do sell to kind of CROs and RevOps, which has been fun to kind of learn about this whole world of sales and to do founder-led selling ourselves and become salespeople. I would say that our marketing today, it's been interesting to be as a founder to recognize the place of marketing in the early stage. And I did a lot of early stage consulting with founders. So I've appreciated being now on the other side of, I think there are some fundamental things you need to do from day one in marketing, but there's a lot of things you don't touch in marketing at this stage because it's just not about, we think that it's about brand or spend a lot. But when you're trying to just discover if people want to buy your product and if they're going to retain, it's so much more fundamental about like, what is the one distribution channel we can get some leads in? How do we talk to customers all day? How do we onboard them, make sure they're successful, make sure that they renew 1 year later? And I've found that focus as a founder, some of it is related to marketing, but so much of it is really not. It's really around, I guess the part of marketing, I would say it's around distribution. So figuring out like, how are we going to acquire leads? But all the fun stuff of marketing, I feel like it's just like, you don't actually need a lot of that in like year one and year two.
What do you say is the fun stuff? What?
Like a lot of the brand building and the content marketing and this, to go to the events and stuff. I feel like that we're just now starting to invest in that at Series A. So I guess I'm saying this within the pre-seed and seed to get to the A. It's a lot more. I think positioning is super important. As much as I want to believe that like having a flashy website matters at that stage, I don't think a lot of that matters when you're just trying to find that core set of 10, 20, 30, 40 customers that will really use your product and give you the product feedback and help you figure out what you need to build next. So much of that foundational stuff is on product and engineering and figuring out your sales motion. That marketing, at least in our experience, has kind of come after all of that, which has meant that the investment in marketing, we're just now really thinking about post Series A.
Okay, that's super interesting. And I'll be curious to follow you as you start to really invest in marketing and just where you're investing, SEM, like just I'm SEM. For those listening, Ashley and I met for the first time at Pavilion Go to Market. So
Yeah. Which was our first conference that we have ever sponsored or done. And we only did that because we raised our A and we are like, okay, we got some money now. We can kind of start to put ourselves out there.
Exciting times for you.
Yep.
So I'm curious for some of those trends you say. So you at the early stages for a lot of you, for what you were doing, it was a lot of early sales. And you started with an SDR at an early stage. Can you tell me more about that decision? Because I know a lot of founders really struggle with, when do I hire my first salesperson, my first SDR? What's founding-led sales versus when I can bring somebody on? And I know, so I'm curious how you decided to do it. And then, of course, heading to Argentina for your first SDR. I'm curious for that because you're not saying it's an AI SDR.
Yeah, that's right. They're humans. It's so dependent on the type of business you have. So that's kind of the first caveat, I think. And background is really not in PLG. I think I've always kind of worked within kind of more top down, even if there's been a premium component, kind of top down, sales led, annual sales. ACVs are probably 15 to 20 or 25K. So within that world, we found that after we got our first customers, which really came through even in our pre-seed fundraise, some of the investor due diligence referrals worked really well to introduce us to some customers. As investors were doing due diligence on us, they run it by their customers. Their customers are like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting. Let me talk to them. And so that's actually how we got our first 3 customers. Once we got those, the next probably 5 came through warm networks. So people we used to work with or advisors. So past that initial 10, the best advice the best thing somebody told us was like, you guys are not working enough pipeline. Like you need to actually you need pipeline. And we're like, oh, you're right. Like getting to the first 10 customers, it's so hard. And then once you get to 10, it's immediately like, well, how are you going to 10X that? And to 10X that, you need way more pipeline because you're not going to close a lot of the deals once you're moving beyond working through your referrals and your friends and the warm connections that you have. So that's why we started to say, okay, well, how are we going to get leads? I think that the initial channels are probably outbound SDR. It's probably paid advertising. I think those are the two that kind of work in terms of like, how are we going to start to get immediate, lead flow? So in our case, we said, we knew that we had this connection to Argentina so that we could experiment in a cost-effective way. Because I think that the SDR motion can be hard to justify the cost, especially dependent on your ACVs and all that. So that really was the catalyst of us just saying, how are we going to get pipeline? We need more pipeline. Let's try outbound. And it's been a lot of testing, refining, building our team here. And I think at this point, we've gotten to where it's a bit of an engine. We've got a team, we have an SDR manager, we have a lot of tech enabled for them. And even still, it's a constant month by month changing strategies as ability goes down or the rise of the AI SDR. You have to keep a constant pulse on what is the latest in outbound and how can we best equip the team.
Oh yeah. I feel like every day there's several LinkedIn posts saying the AI SDR is the future and the AI SDR will never work.
It's so polarizing. It's like, and if you read LinkedIn, it's true. Depending on the day, I feel like you get so many good tidbits from LinkedIn, and then so many times where you're like, okay, am I failing because I'm not doing that, or we don't do that, or that, and so you have to kind of take it all with a grain of salt.
One of the things that I do say to a lot of founders is one of the hardest parts is knowing what advice to take. Because you will get incredible advice from incredible people, but nobody knows your business better than you. And the question is, which of these 5 people who are saying 10 different things, which 3 do I listen to?
You are so right. I feel like there is no shortage of good advice when you have smart people around you. It's easy to feel impressionable because you're like, in my case, I'm like, well, I'm not a salesperson. I should trust them more because they've been running sales for the last 15 years. It's like, yes, they have the credentials, but they are not running this business. And me, in my experience, I may not have been doing sales, but I've been doing all these other roles. So you have to end up trusting your own gut. And I felt like early on that was kind of hard. Probably I was more impressionable and thinking that other people had the answers instead of saying like, okay, out of the 5, let's take the 2 and let's make our own judgment call based on kind of the inputs.
I feel you so much on that.
Yeah, this is why I think people are so more successful in their second or third go rounds of this, because you realize how much you learn the first time around. Like with anything, the company building is no different. You go through all of this and you're like, oh, yeah, next time I'll do it. I'll feel differently because you have those skills under your belt.
Now, speaking of company building, and you've talked about a lot of technologies, what are you excited about? Like, what are you going to use next or experiment with?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are experimenting with, well, we just bought Tofu, which I'm excited about. I like the idea of kind of having a product wrapped around kind of, hey, I did this thing. I did this campaign. Like I did this event. Let's turn it into a campaign. I wrote this content. Let's turn it into, these are my 3 outputs, my LinkedIn posts, my blog posts, my snippets. I'm excited about Tofu. For those of you who don't know, it's a tool to basically help you do kind of account-based marketing campaign creation. And so when I think about, we just did a round of video case studies with our customers. So even being able to take the transcript and turn that into the blog, turn it into a LinkedIn post, turn it into a landing page. I love the idea of being able to do that kind of with one click. I'm excited about that. I think too, I'm excited about, it's kind of TBD on how this shapes out, but we've been doing a lot of signal-based alerting for SDR team, of course. I think that's like the topic du jour right now. We use Ample Market for a lot of that. So Ample Market is kind of our sequencing tool. It also lets us do LinkedIn messaging, and we're using their AI product that does the signaling within that around commenting on LinkedIn posts or job changes, all those things, make it so that our SDRs coupled with, we've rolled out account-based marketing, an ABM strategy for the SDRs. I think we're excited to have our SDRs focus less on spending time on prospecting and kind of doing that stuff that with tech, we can just enable them to kind of know exactly who to target, how to talk to them. Here's the messaging. Here's the right signal to go after. And we're just finding, just in the 2 months that we've been rolling that out, better quality of the people that are booking with us. And I think our SDRs are feeling more equipped to spend their time on things that are really going to help them hit their number and get paid.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that you found working for you.
I think it's kind of TBD because I think we're looking to hire probably a go-to-market engineer. So somebody who can work with us here in Argentina on kind of really architecting these systems to help our SDRs have more of these signals on who they should go after. I feel like we're getting a taste of that with what Ample Market offers us within the platform. But I'm excited to kind of see, I feel like there's this that's obviously a big strategy for a lot of people this next year. So I'm excited to jump on that bandwagon and see how we can benefit from that.
And speaking of this next year coming up, what's exciting you most about from the company standpoint?
So we raised our Series A about 6 months ago. So we've been hiring and scaling the team. I'm most excited to see that come to fruition as we hit our next revenue targets in 2025 and transitioning from the founders doing selling, doing CS to we have a director of CS, we have a VP of sales, bringing a head of marketing. Like I'm excited to be able to take a step back in many ways from the moment to moment execution and think a little bit more strategically, execute on the things that I think I'm really good at and that I like to do versus the things that I have to do because there's nobody else to do them and I'll just figure it out. I think it's great to hire some experts in their field and bring them in. Like our VP of sales is much better equipped to doing selling than we are. So it's great to have somebody who knows how to build comp plans and hire people and to see all that in action is just really exciting. And in the perspective of, oh, this is like our company and now we have other people to help us run it. That's awesome.
So you've got the overall strategic vision and they can help execute on, here's the latest tool, I've made 50 different comp plans, because you're the master organizer, but that doesn't mean that you know the minute details about everything.
That's exactly it. It's fun to learn everything on the go, but it's tiring to learn everything on the go too. At some point, you have to scale yourself out from, oh, well, we need to do that. I'll figure it out. I'll just do it. Versus you have somebody who really does know what they're doing already in some of those areas of the business. It's great to come to that next phase. I feel really lucky that we got to raise the Series A and go into the next phase of growth and see where it takes us.
Super excited to follow you. I know we're coming up on time, but any predictions for what's going to happen in 2025?
Well, I guess to plug a webinar we're doing next week with Toby Carrington, the Chief Business Officer at Seismic. We're talking about the growth at lower cost. So moving from age of efficiency, cutting back to growth. And I think we're definitely seeing that within our customer base and the conversations we're having. Like there's budgets again, people are buying tools, but I think they're doing it in a smart way. They're doing it with AI kind of at the forefront. They're figuring out what their AI strategy really is and putting it in play. I think the last year or two some people have still been sitting on the sidelines to see where things will shake out. So I think if we look ahead to 2025, it is a time of growth again. Companies are investing in growing the business, which means headcount and tooling, but they'll be doing it in a smart way. So I think as vendors, we have to kind of figure out what are we really solving for? How are we showing kind of outcome-based results? How are we standing out from our competition? And I think the focus on kind of customer experience, CS, people feeling like they have a really good vendor experience is ever more paramount. So I think those are the things that we're definitely focused on as we think about our team and our areas of just making sure we have good coverage as we go into 2025.
Thank you so much. This has been fascinating to learn more about your journey so far, and really excited for where you're going to take Momentum in 2025.
It's great to chat with you.
Thank you.